Ring is here in Canastota, New York for the International Boxing Hall of Fame weekend. And with me right now, former world champion Shawn Porter. Shawn, how's the weekend been treating you?
I just knew my ooh yeah was going to knock some of that cool off of you, and it did not. You're just cool as you want to be, huh?
I tried.
Yeah.
I tried.
I just got here, and you know the Hall of Fame is the Hall of Fame. It's going to always be fun, electric, and just simply amazing. The fans, boxing fans are amazing. And, and then, of course, seeing all of the fighters as well. And just being a part of this family, I'm very, very grateful and blessed.
Now, the big elephant in the room this year with the Hall of Fame is the biggest name getting in is also fighting in a couple of months for a world title. You were a guy in the same weight class that he's going to be fighting in for a world title and held that world title.
Yeah.
You knew when it was time to go. Do you think it's smart for a guy at 46 to come in against a young kid like Mario Barrios?
First off, for me, my space in boxing, my why, it wasn't the same as most fighters' why. Okay. My why was being able to provide for my family. My why was, it was something that I saw when I was young, and I just said, I want to do that, you know? And as I grew and got older and, just listening to my faith in God, I recognized for myself, like, hey, my space in boxing there ends with Terence Crawford. And I just knew it. And I tell people all the time, for me, if you don't believe that that was the end for me, you just look at how many people I've been able to touch in the last 3 or 4 years being retired. As I think I've been able to do more outside of the ring than I would have been able to. And I still am able to reach people and touch people, So other fighters, specifically to Manny Pacquiao, he told me the other day when he retired, he was sad. He cried for a long time, and I believe it. That's how a lot of fighters are. That's how a lot of people are when they leave their love, or they leave something that they've done virtually their whole life. I don't think it's especially smart for him to come back to the ring. And I think also coming back to the ring, he has to be smart with who he gets in the ring with.
Yeah.
Mario Barrios, I think, is that guy that's gives him everything that he wants. I don't think there's anyone else that he could earn that kind of payday against, that it would be justified. There's no other champion, I guess, for the sake of words, that would make sense, and, kind of the list goes on. So we got Manny get back in the ring at 46. Not something obviously I wouldn't do. I ain't do it at 36. You know what I mean? So not something that I would do, but at the same time, I understand his why. I appreciate it. I think he's gonna be all right.
You probably would be a lot more worried if he was getting in the ring with Boots.
That's the name I thought of. You know what I mean? Like, as I was, saying that, I thought about Boots, and I'm like, yeah, 100% will be worried. Listen, there's no knock on Mario Barrios. Mario Barrios is good. Mario Barrios is very solid. He's a very solid boxer. But Boots Ennis is such a puzzle that ain't the puzzle I want to see Manny Pacquiao in the ring with at 46.
Now, did you have your mind made up before the Crawford fight or after the Crawford fight that you were going?
This is something most people don't know. I thought I was going to retire after I fought Errol Spence. And I'm working on my documentary. You guys will see all this in the doc. And I'm literally in my room a couple days after the fight trying to, how do I go to my dad and tell him I'm retiring? I don't want to box anymore. All that kind of stuff. This is 2019, right after I fought him, like the week after I fought him. And I couldn't really figure out how to formulate those words. And then I heard something say, you're not done yet. And then I heard something say, there's more. And you guys can fill in that something. For me, it was God. For me, it was my spirit really just talking to me, telling me that I have more to do. And I was like, what else could I have? Errol Spence gets into that car accident.
Yeah.
Prior to Errol getting into that car accident, I had never heard anybody say they want to see me in the ring with Terence Crawford. I personally had never read that, never seen that. I'm not on social media, so if it was there, I hadn't seen it. after Errol gets into the accident, people say, we want to see Shawn Porter in the ring with Terence Crawford. And I spoke to God and I said, it's Terence and then I'm done. And actually talked to my dad in 2020 during the pandemic. I go and get my hip checked out. My hip has been in bad shape for years. It was in bad shape back when I fought Keith Thurman. It was in bad shape when I fought Danny Garcia. The list goes on. And I go to my dad after I have this checkup, this appointment, and they literally told me that you're pretty much decimeters away from arthritis in your hip. Try to do as much as you can in the next year or two because you're going to have to get a hip replacement. I haven't gotten the hip replacement yet, just, continuing to do the physical therapy on it and stuff like that. But took that recording to my dad. My dad listened to it. He looked at me and he says, well, you had a good career. And we laughed about that. And he said, well, how much longer do you want to fight? So I thought I was retiring after I fought Errol. And he said, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, I just want to fight Terence and then I'm done. So it was, it went the way it was supposed to go for me.
Now, in hindsight, anyone could say, something after the fact. I'm talking about fans and people
absolutely.
like that. But if you were to win that fight,
the Errol fight,
no, the fight with Crawford, because you've seen fighters sometimes leading up to a fight saying, this is the last one. Then they get that big win, and all of a sudden, all these offers start flying on the table, and they say, well, maybe I could squeeze one or two more.
Listen, I told God I was done, and I didn't hear nothing after that, So when I told God I got Terence and that's it, and I didn't hear anything, it didn't matter if it was a draw, didn't matter if I won, didn't matter if I lost, and I know, that number goes up if you win. The fight was a pretty decent fight. If we end with me on my feet, it may have even ended in a draw, Didn't matter what that next number was. And I'm still here now. I'm still saying that now.
Now, if you would have won, was there a rematch clause that could have tried to entice you back into a second
fight?
Yes,
there was.
Yeah.
I wasn't coming back. I handed him the belt like, yeah, go ahead and do your thing. This is your world.
Yeah.
Boxing boxing was my world, but I think, honestly, God blessed me where I was able to live in that space, but not live like most fighters. I didn't love boxing. It was just something that I did that I kind of felt like I needed to do in order for me to get where I am now. And if you knew everywhere that I've gone and everything that I'm doing now, and if I told you the plan when I was a teenager, you believe in God. You believe it. Yeah, for sure.
Well, you probably see a lot of fighters during the Hall of Fame that aren't walking correctly, aren't speaking correctly. And you probably say to yourself, you know what, I made the right decision walking away when I did.
Funny thing about that, that wasn't at the forefront of my mind. It wasn't, let me get in here and get out of here safely. That was kind of like that was the deal that my dad and myself had, we talked about it maybe before I turned pro, but that really wasn't at the forefront of my mind. How many more is it, the neck punch or anything like that. But I was in the ring sparring with, shout out to Kenny Sims. I was in the ring with Kenny Sims just last week, and he caught me a couple of times. And I was like, I said, I got this far being safe. I was like, I can't take that kind of punch now. You know what I mean? So I'm good. And I am going to get back in the ring with him. He wants me to help him get ready for Oscar Duarte. And I'm like, help you get ready? I mean, I really wouldn't say I'm helping you get ready, but I'll get in there and give you some rounds and give you a good look. I do know that I can do that with my experience. I can give you a look of Oscar Duarte that other guys just can't do, So this is the space I love being in now,
Now, since you were in the ring with Terence and you gave him some tough moments in that fight, what do you think about now that he's moving up, one fight in 54, heading all the way up by 2 divisions to 68 to fight the undisputed super middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez in September?
This had to be 2017. It was right before he moved up to welterweight, and we were having a conversation. So y'all figure out when that was, but it was right before he moved up. I asked him, we went and played ball. He was in Vegas, took him to the 24-hour fitness. We played ball. We're walking out to my car. I said, yo, man, you moving up? He said, yeah. I said, who you want to fight? Told me you want to fight, all that kind of stuff. And that was when we made that deal. Hey, let's not allow anybody to force us to fight. Let's make sure that it's something that you and I talk about and we agree that it's what we want to do. And as you can see, I kind of went out. I went the other way with that deal. Kind of is what it is. But that same conversation, I told him, I said, man, I love you. And he was looking at me like, I said, Mama, let me tell you why I love you. I love you because you've never changed. You are who you are. You always give me the same Terence Crawford no matter what. I don't get that from a lot of people in boxing, especially the fighters, the guys that we came up with. So I love you because you are who you are. And he hasn't changed. So when I talk about a fight with Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, it does come from a personal place for me to root for him. But I know how to put my bias aside and be realistic about this fight. I think it's perfect timing for both of these guys. I think that this is a fight that both guys have the ability to win. I think that Canelo has been in enough wars and Terence hasn't. So I think health is on his side. I think the ability to be able to be 100% on fight night is on Terence's side. I think Canelo is going to come to the ring at 90%. That's where he's at now.
Yeah.
And if he's strong enough and he's mentally prepared to do what it takes to break down Terence, you got to break down Terence mentally. You don't break him down physically. You break him down mentally, So it's a tall feat for both these guys. And I think that it's very real. This is a 50-50 fight, I think. And I do think that Terence will pull it off.
Do you think that inactivity hurts him at all? That he...
For Terence, right?
Yeah.
I said the same thing. And I get it. Because that's where I was with him. And I ended up taking this fight with Sebastian Formella. I didn't want that fight. And that activity that I had, I wasted time and energy getting myself ready for a fight that I didn't really need to have. It was like I need all of that and more going into a fight with Terence.
Yeah.
So when I look at Terence and I say, yo, you going, and he said, nope. I said, I'm not even going to argue on that because I've been there before for myself where I didn't want to do anything and I was kind of forced to do it. And I poured out a little bit more out of my cup than I wanted to. So while I hate the inactivity that he has, I get it. And he's just that different kind of guy that inactivity, I don't think is going to matter on fight night.
And the ring has a card coming up, July the 12th, double main event, 2 very interesting fights, both bangers. Hamzah Sheeraz against Edgar Berlanga.
I love that fight.
And co-feature, Shakur Stevenson defending against his mandatory. William Zepeda, undefeated. You're familiar with all 4 guys. How do you see the 2 super middleweights? How do you see Shakur and Zepeda?
Shakur, and I'm telling you, I watched Shakur. First time I ever watched him spar. I went to the gym and I told him I was gonna come up and watch him spar. First time seeing him work, and I get it. It's just sparring. I get it.
Yeah.
He got in the ring with a mover that likes to use speed. I'm not joking with y'all. For some reason, the kid stops moving and stopped using his speed. I'm like, damn, like he just turned off everything that kid does. Like, damn. The next guy that gets in the ring with him is this come forward, this what's the kid he's fighting?
Like pressure puncher?
Yeah, Zepeda. This is Zepeda kind of guy. I'm like, okay, let's see how he handles this guy. I saw he stops that guy from doing everything that he does. And it happened in like less than a minute. My point is, and we've seen this from Floyd Mayweather, some fighters have the ability to just simply stop you from doing what you do. And I'm not saying that Shakur is Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
But we've seen it before in Floyd. He has a lot of similarities to Floyd. He looked up to Floyd and the list goes on. I saw that in the gym. So I'm a firm believer that he's going to be able to do that to Zepeda. Just completely turn off what Zepeda does. Zepeda's job to not allow him to do that. Easier said than done. I think one thing about Zepeda that you can't say about the guys that I saw Floyd fight later on in his career, Zepeda's young. Zepeda's hungry. And the guys that I saw Floyd fight, when he turned those guys off, Miguel, some of those guys, Shane caught him with a punch and then just completely turned it off. You know, Andre Berto, you know, some of those guys, even, you know, the great Manny Pacquiao, those guys were a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth than Zepeda. So I think it's going to be a great fight. I expect Shakur to turn it all off and show his greatness. And then that main event, I think that Sheeraz is going to get it done. For me, and I do have a respect for the young man now, Berlanga. I do have a respect for Berlanga now that I didn't have before. I had an opportunity to talk to him and see him after his fight with Canelo Alvarez, and you know he enlightened me on who he is and how he loves the game and stuff like that. So man, you know what? I gotta respect that. But all that being said, yes, ma'am. All that being said, he's a very one-note fighter. He looks for the perfect punch. And if that perfect punch isn't there, he doesn't do a lot to set up anything else. And Sheeraz is a really good boxer. Showed himself well against Adames. So I got Sheeraz winning that one.
Now, just on the other side of the coin, and Shakur and Zepeda, I know you had mentioned Floyd. Two of the fighters that had given him his toughest assignments was Jose Luis Castillo, Marcos Maidana, who were come forward guys who just kept throwing punches.
And those guys were young.
Yes.
At that point in time when those guys fought, they were young against Floyd. So I think that's key, because when you're young, you're dumb enough to keep going into the fire. When you get a little bit older, you know, like myself, I'm like, I'm not training like this anymore. You know what I mean? When you get a little bit older, you get a little bit more experience. There's shots you're willing to take and shots you aren't willing to take. So Zepeda's young enough, and I like Zepeda. Yeah. I just think that he's very one note. And you got to be able to mix it up and do more against somebody like Shakur.
Another fight that's coming up, I know you've had comments about some of these crossover boxers, Jake Paul, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., the first guy that he's fighting, you could say he's a former world champion, but a little bit long in the tooth at this point, Chavez Jr.
Yeah.
Just perfect opponent at the right time.
Yeah, yeah, funny thing is when Jake Paul first came into the game and his brother was doing it too, I was looking at Jake especially because I'd seen some of the moves he had made. I'm like, how's this dude know how to work this business like this? And his business acumen is bar none at this point. He he's done his research and he's done everything he's needed to do. And timing, this is what I say about life. This is what I say about boxing. Timing is everything. And this dude went through a couple of UFC guys, and you know he had the thing with
a
Fury,
player,
and he had all that kind of stuff. And timing just shows up that Chavez Jr., a former world champion that's long in the tooth and not known for being a hard worker and all these other things, is the perfect opponent to put that little stamp on Jake and coin him an actual fighter. So. There it is.
You know, Jake had said...
I don't think, all that being, I don't think that Chavez beats Jake Paul. I don't.
You know, Jake had said prior to making this fight that he was actually in talks and close to a deal to fight Tank Davis.
Right.
And the size disparity just seems so crazy to me that, of course, on paper, an average fan would just say, oh, he'll just go through him. But as Floyd found out with Logan Paul, you're fighting a 200-pound guy, and if you don't put that guy away, you could be in for a longer night than you expected.
Yeah. You know, when we saw Tank fight Mario Barrios, we saw a tentative Tank for the first half of that fight. He was very tentative. He was looking at that size like he hadn't been there before. In an actual professional boxing match, he hadn't. You know, so two things are gonna happen. Either he's gonna act accordingly. I've been here before. I know what to do. And this guy ain't got the kind of experience I got. I'm going to do what I have to do and get the job done. And like you said, not play with his food. Or he's going to be wide-eyed again and be very tentative because of that size. I think that fight's crazy. And it doesn't make sense, but it's Jake Paul, so...
Because they're still talking about that fight. If provided both of them win,
crazy, right?
Maybe at the end of the year.
I know. I think it's crazy. That's one that I trust Tank would handle, but at the same time, again, seeing the way he responded to Mario Barrios for the first half of the fight, kind of don't know.
And the way Tank performed in his last fight, he's got the rematch coming up. It's not a given that he beats Lamont Roach.
Yeah, a lot going on before that fight, a lot going on in camp and things like of that nature. We all have those things going on, but I think it showed up. And the other thing is that Roach is a good boxer. Man, this is the disservice that boxing does to itself. You got to promote both sides. You don't promote Roach enough, and people don't know what he's about. People don't know what he can do. And it's what I said on the Porter Way podcast. These guys are very familiar with one another. A lot of guys that Tank gets in the ring with, they haven't seen that rhythm. They haven't seen that speed. They haven't seen that power and all those things. These guys are familiar with one another.
Yeah.
That fight went exactly how I thought it was going to go. The only thing I thought was that at some point Tank was going to move ahead and show his superiority because he's established his superiority in terms of being at that level. And he just didn't do it. But how could you with somebody that knows you, somebody that comes from where you come from?
What's your take on what everyone talked about after the fight was the controversial knockdown call?
I hated it. I thought it should have been called and ruled a knockdown. And, again, that's boxing shooting itself in the foot.
And if it would have been called...
I don't remember who the ref was for that fight. It was Willis. It was Steve Willis.
Steve Willis.
It was Steve Willis. He doesn't miss. He's a really good referee.
Yeah.
And when it happened, I said, Steve got caught up in the moment. Got caught up in the moment and wasn't quite sure what to do. And, I love Steve, so I'm not going to go in on him. I'm going to go in on boxing. This is what you did to yourself. You set up boxing so that when boxing makes a mistake, boxing doesn't have to answer to the mistake.
And in closing, what would you like to say to all your supporters, people who've been following you for so long?
Just keep watching out, man. Got a lot coming out. Documentary I mentioned should be done by the summer, mid to end summer. I have a film that I've been working on. This thing is gonna get funded this year. It's a $6 million budget feature film, completely fictional film, which is why I love it.
Not about boxing, or
listen, I made the goal to be a actor when I was 16 years old. And I said, how do I get there? And I said, I'm going to get there through boxing. It's a boxing film. And this will be the first true feature film that is showcased. The lead in the film is a actual boxer, So I know Muhammad did something back in the day. I haven't seen that film, but I know he did something back in the day. But this to me is a little bit more because I'm portraying a character. I'm not Shawn Porter in the film, you know what I mean? So this is not based on my life whatsoever. And I love it, So that's that's a part of my testimony. So a lot coming out, and just keep supporting me, man. I love you guys, and I do what I do for y'all,